welcome to the Realm Kast. I am your host, the Mortal Kombat FANTiM, and with me as always is my co-host, the Lore Master Yanni. Welcome, Yanni.
Thanks, FANTiM.
Today with us, we have a special guest. I'd like to welcome Rattlehead onto the show. Hi, Rattlehead. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? We're doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to have you. So, let's just kind of jump into this. Tell us a little bit about what has been your experience with Mortal Kombat. How did you kind of get involved in the scene?
And when it comes to Mortal Kombat, I actually been around, I guess, you know how they say that it's rated M for mature, but I think a lot of us experience this where you're a kid, you go to the arcade machines and you see like the freaking Goro on the what do you call it? On the track mode, passing by. It's like, yo, what is that? And that's how I got involved with it. I was like, 4 or 5 years old as a kid passing by an arcade, place. And, that's how I, got just from that moment on, I, fell in love with the series just by looking at that huge, like monster with 4 arms, at the time. And then of course, looking at, Scorpion and Sub-Zero fighting each other in the, in the what do you call it? The pit stage. Watching other players play, and that's pretty much how it all started. And that's like a basic way of how I got into the game, into the series, basically just passing by and, hearing those because back then the sounds, like even like if you could see the game, but just the sounds too, like they sounded very powerful in the arcade machine. Like when you pass by, it was so distinct compared to every other game.
Yeah.
That was like, 8-bit or 16-bit sounds. Whereas this, they kind of took a little more realistic approach, like the hits and the background of the music and just the characters. It was just like, what is this?
It had substance to it.
Yeah.
They even had like a subsystem or something in those arcade machines that kind of gave it that extra boom whenever you'd walk past them.
Did they?
Yeah, just the speaker setup on them is really cool. So you would always hear that and kind of feel it as you're walking through the arcade.
I think that's why people love doing the uppercuts too, because like those are the most like hard hitting sounding, noises when you hear from far away is the uppercuts. Yeah, so people, I guess it just felt satisfactory just doing that. I guess for any casual player that just came by and just started playing the game.
That on the roundhouse.
the roundhouse, yeah, that too. but that's basically how I got into it. At the time, fun fact, at the time I actually, I guess we'll discuss this later on, but it was when I was, you notice how I mentioned that I was able to see the characters. So that kind of blends in into us too, I guess, if you guys have any questions regarding that. But back then I did, have perfect vision at the time. So, being a kid, I didn't know how to take all that information in, right? All I saw this just yellow ninja and this blue ninja. And this dude like threw that thing. It looked like a snake to me because I didn't know how to interpret it, but it was a spear, a rope with a rope,
Yeah.
And a character with a ball of ice, So it's like, hey, this is like really cool, So and that's how I just like and I used to go there like a lot of the times just to kind of check out other people because back then I didn't have money, to go play in there. And until later on, that's why I used to go there frequently and actually, just play. And you think, how I always think that you're good when nobody else can challenge you. But once you like step against somebody else that can actually play the game, then you're like, oh man, I'm not good at this thing at all, But I was just a kid at the time. So that was just kind of the beginnings, when I really got into it was when I lived in a different country than where I am now. I experienced it back in my home country. I'm from Guatemala. And so when they finally had the arcade machines there, that's when we were able to check them out. But then when I came here is when I got my first console was a Nintendo 64. And I had that version of Trilogy. And my official first home game that I owned was one of the games that I learned over the years that people hated it and I love it even to this day. Like I literally posted a footage of it on my Twitter. Was it 2 days ago? Mythology Sub-Zero.
Yes. Such a good game.
Dude, I love that game. I don't care. Like, it's one, I guess, because there was a transition to 3D and all that. So, but for me, that game was like, it was so cool because it told a story. You were fighting this, this like other character, the yellow character. And so that's when I started learning more about the characters themselves. It's like, oh, wow, this is like, really cool. Linear story, obviously. There's nothing like mind blowing about it, but it was just something that you go through and everything. And, I didn't care about the glitches or that. I didn't know that then when I was like, 13, 14. So I just like I played the hell out of that game. Like I really loved it. Like, and at that point, actually, it was when I could barely see the screen. I used to like sit really, really close to the TV, and play it that way. And then my brother was the one who like actually passed the entire game, and I would just do like the boss fights. Because it was
the platforming must have been so difficult. Yeah,
it was. It's depending on what some of the stages though, because like if I think the first one, I could still pass it right now. I just did it 2 days ago. I was like, oh wow, I can still do this. Yeah, I just did it like 2 days ago. Where like as soon as I find one item, I just jump forward, and then I maybe like run a few like maybe like a half a second, and then I just push like the high punch to make one of the rocks fall, and I hear it fall, right, and then like once the sound is done, I just kind of run forward a little bit and do the same thing and move forward. And I was like, whoa, I could actually do this. Let's go. So. But obviously, the hardest one would have to be the Fujin stage, the second one, because that's that's like the hardest one, and the Bridge of Immortality, because there's you got to know when to jump, the areas, otherwise you'll fall. But a lot of other stages are pretty linear, so you can kind of go do them. Like my favorite that I used to do like over and over was the one where you first go into the Nether Realm and you meet Scorpion as as his like. UMK3 form, when it comes to actual score. That was my favorite part of that. Yeah, the Spectre form. That was my favorite part of that. So yeah, that's how I got into MK, like really hardcore into MK after that. And then Trilogy, I just learned how to play against the arcade machine, and my love for MK just grew from there.
I think at this point, I mean, we might as well kind of bring this up and let our audience know you are actually a member of the blind fighting game community, correct?
That's correct, and that's a recently, I guess, assembled subgroup within the FGC in the fighting game community in general. Because I've been around since Mortal Kombat 9. That's when I guess I broke my breakthrough. I did my breakthrough as far as being involved in the FGC, going to EVO in 2013. Basically, the last legs of Mortal Kombat 9 at the time. So I was one of the few who went out there in tournaments. I know there was somebody else too, actually, that even that website Test You Might made an article about him, but he only made like one appearance, and then we didn't hear anything from that player anymore. It was I was around 2012, I think. It's one of those things that you have to dig in to really find out. I think the article's deleted now. But there was that, and that was like when really set me off. I was like, hey, I can do that. Like, because I was when MK9 is when I really learned about that you can actually take a game, break it apart, and do some crazy stuff with it. I thought you just always had to go by the game, the rules of the game. But that's when it really started for me on the FGC. But I've been playing MK, like I said, since I went, like when I started losing my vision over the years. I still kept on playing. I played the 3D era is my favorite era because I grew up with it.
Nice.
I think that's we are our subject of our time. So you're gonna be more nostalgic with stuff that you actually grew up with. So to me, that's the 3D era. Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon. Everybody knows how we feel about that game. but it was still part of my teenage years. So like it's a really crappy game, but I still like, what? Like I have two copies actually. I have the standard edition, and then I have the collector's edition. The one that has UMK3 on it. So I got those, and but the fighting game community, as far as the blind FGC, it just really took off. I would say at the beginning of MK11. But as far as there were other blind players out there as well, but they're kind of like dispersed kind of everywhere. That we didn't have like an actual like group until like now.
All right. Well, you've mentioned quite a few games. I'm curious because you said, you saw it in the arcades, and then you loved Mythologies, and then you were on Trilogy. Which is your favorite MK game?
Oh man, that's rough because I have favorites between each era, so it's hard to pick like my top one like favorite game. But if I was to pick one, like to say this is what defines MK for me in all aspects, will probably be MK9.
All right.
MK9, because so many things happen there. Learning about the tournament scene, defying the odds as a blind player, going to tournaments and stuff. And like, so that really kind of set it off. And just actually learning to actually like play at the high level. Like I'd say, and this comes from like feedback from people. everybody used to always to tell me like if I was to be considered, I was probably the top blind player of the MK9 era. Like there was nobody else who played at the high level because I used to play Cyrax, and of course he kind of carried you a little bit too with his bomb setups that were like unblockable. But you got to know how to pull that off. It was a little execution heavy, so it took me months to master it. But just by sound, I started learning how to do the setups, all the one hit kills that people used to hate.
Yeah.
So
that's
so
crazy. I'm just imagining. Like Cyrax is hard enough execution wise for somebody with vision, but you were pulling that. That's crazy, man. Honestly.
Yeah, so that I would say. So yeah, I would say MK9 is my favorite game. It's broken as it is now that you look back at it, but it's like again, who cares? You kind of grew up. Whatever happens in your time, you're always gonna go back and say, hey, nostalgia is a strong thing.
Yeah.
So MK9 is my favorite game of all time. Like if I was to say, but like I said, I have in different eras. I have my favorite ones, but I guess I would just have to pick that one as because it did so much for me.
Do you have a favorite character throughout the series?
I'm a cliche fan, so I'm a Scorpion fan through and through. But I really like Cyrax though. But Cyrax became more like my favorite because of the tournament scene, and I loved him. But so even in MKX, I just I was like I tried to pick him up, but it just didn't fit that way I wanted to play Cyrax. So I was like, let me go back to Scorpion. Just fit that. Cancels, fireball cancels, all that, like high execution as well at the high level with Scorpion. So I picked him up because of that. I just felt comfortable. But yeah, Scorpion's always been my favorite character in the series.
Everybody always feels bad saying that Scorpion's like a cliche pick and everything, but we have to remember he is the face of MK and he has so much lore behind him that ties directly into the main lore. So I say don't feel bad about saying Scorpion's your favorite.
It's funny because the hate I get like online, right? Especially like if you go to rank modes and any like it's like like it started in MKX. I remember when I would pick Scorpion, people would leave the rank like mode as soon as I picked them. It's like, damn, give me a chance at least, just play, But then after that, I just started switching to like player matches, and that's where I started meeting a lot of like high level tournament players. It's like once they found out like that like who they were playing, I was like, oh dude, we gotta play again, or I gotta add you, and that's how I just kind of like got myself known in the game. But Scorpion is my favorite character.
So I mean, you kind of gave us a little bit of your background. I'm curious, when like around what game did you actually lose your vision, and are you completely blind now at this point?
Yeah, I'm completely blind at this point, and it was a process. My blindness is caused by glaucoma, which if you don't really like keep up with it, basically you don't know it until it's too late, kind of thing, So apparently, and I learned this later in the years. I don't want to go all over the place with the story, but basically, I grew up with glaucoma, and for several years, I had perfect vision. That's why I was able to kind of describe the characters that I envision in my head now. Is basically how they look in the 2D era. So I don't know how they look like now, but yeah. So every time I hear the names, I'm like, okay, so I just picked it out of my head. But over the years, I started losing it. It wasn't like I woke up and I'm blind now. It was one of those things where some days will get better, and then some days it just be like kind of like seeing through fog, maybe, and or like if I look at images, I wouldn't see the outline, like the outside of image. I kind of just see like the picture itself, but not like the like if I was to trace the lines of the images or whatever, So what was happening is that I was losing my peripheral vision, my sight vision.
Yeah.
And so you don't notice that until like, oh wow, it's actually closing in, kind of thing, So over the years, it just started happening, little by little. And around, I'd say, when it was the trilogy era, I could barely just see like colors. Like if Raiden threw his lightning ball, I could just see a flash across the screen, but I didn't know, I didn't see any details at that point or anything. I even started losing like the ability to see colors too. So I didn't even know what colors there were at that point. So it was just kind of like a blur. The screen just looked like a square blur, to me. That's all I had. And then by I guess MK9, actually, because I was in college at the time, and that's when I went completely blind in both eyes by then.
Wow. And that's when you started joining the tournaments, was after you were completely blind?
Yes.
Was that a big learning curve for you to play, or had you kind of gotten used to playing blind from your gradual transition into a blind person?
Over the years, yeah, I think because I kept playing anyway, because I was like, once I figured out, like, you know what, I might as well just keep going, like, and I just got comfortable with just the sound effects, like just learn, like, the way I started approaching a new game was just really try to take in all of the sound effects for each character, and which a lot of the times were very generic anyway. They were very generic sounds, so it was kind of easier to really, like, okay, I see what what the punch sounds, what the kick sounds, what the I see they changed the sound of the spear, or they changed the sound of the ice ball, or they changed the sound of the Sub-Zero slide, or I will notice things like, oh, they use Sub-Zero's sound slide from Mythologies and gave it to Fujin when it does his knee move, little details like that, that I would start noticing. I was like, so I just started paying attention more. It's, just the sound effects. And it got to the point where I was just good against the AI, like at the hardest difficulty as well, even with no vision at all. I was like, wow, yeah, I got really good at it. And then especially it's then, and I remember when we bought MK4 at the time, because it was still the same stage where I could just see a blur, but I was like, screw it, let's play anyway. And I was just so hyped to play a new game, at the time. And yeah, I just started noticing the sounds of like characters have swords now, like I hear this little sound when it pulls it out, and of course they make those little funny quotes whenever they pull out the swords. Like everybody has their own custom made. MK4 was just so goofy as hell. It's like you have all these like characters saying random things, a lot of gibberish everywhere. So I was like, okay, so he's pulling the sword out, so I kind of memorized those things, And I don't know if you guys remember what, like, because this was well known. Like when they drop the swords, you hear this 3 cling sounds,
clanging, yeah,
clang, clang, clang. Oh, they dropped it, So, but that right there, I kind of was at a disadvantage though, because I wasn't able to track where did the sword fall to pick it up and throw it at the opponent. That was the one. So I never used that mechanic. So, and then of course there was a sound when they threw the swords at you. So I just pushed the sidestep button to like avoid it. I started like learning how to have good reactions with that stuff. So over the years I played the games like that, with barely any vision, just really just I'm gonna just pay attention to the sound. I'm not even gonna bother looking at having my eyes open, because at that point I also started building a kind of like a bad habit, I guess, of my eyes would just close, because my eyes were always in pain like every day. So for me to kind of relax them, I just kind of close them. And to this day, I find myself doing that. I was like, oh, I got my eyes closed. I didn't even realize anymore, But that's just something that I guess I do without consciously knowing that I did it now. And so when I reached the MK9 era, I was already like playing the game, against the AI, feeling I'm a total badass over here, But then I discovered, oh, I guess that's not how you play the game. Like if we were to play against somebody else. And so that's when I started learning about like tournaments. And like I remember the Harris PDP tournament, they were promoting this fight stick that they released with that collector's edition. And they did I remember when Tom Brady did this combo with Johnny, like a bunch of hits, and I was like, whoa, you can actually do like your own stuff, So that's when I realized that this is a whole new aspect of the MK community that I had no idea even. And I think even then the MK side of the FGC was just starting to really build up, because I know they had tournaments like in the past, but they were kind of more super underground. You didn't know unless you followed them, Yeah. So, but at that point, I feel like I was already, I guess to be like, I kind of know the basics of how to play MK to begin with, like, so that kind of made it easier. And luckily, actually, like at the time too, like once you guys had a guest here that actually helped me push myself into the spotlight. James Fink.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, that's my boy, man. When I heard that episode of him, I was like, oh, that's he's the one who, like, he's like, hey, let's do it. He was doing his show at the time, and he was like, hey, let me get you in here. Let's talk about your whatever, because at the time I was just I started a YouTube channel where I would literally take like a webcam and try to match it to the screen. And like I would record like basic, footage of me playing. I even have a video that a lot of people don't want me to delete. It's like one of my first videos in there. It's cringy now, but it's called Real Blind Guy Plays Kenshi, and I'm playing against Rain using Kenshi doing his combos, And I'm like, nah.
It just clicked that was you. I've seen that.
Oh, that's me.
It never clicked.
Yeah, that's me. Small world. Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's me. And so like it's there, and like you could even hear the fan of my laptop like really loud on the video. Like it's so cringe. I'm like, oh god, But hey, you gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because I also another fun fact too. I actually used to lurk a lot on Mortal Kombat Online website where they would talk about lore and like character theories and all that stuff. And I remember I posted me trying to kind of like not knowing how to make myself known because I wanted to be part of the community. And as soon as I mentioned that I was blind, like people got so uncomfortable that it was just became like, I'm not doing this right now. Like I just stepped back. Like it got taken the wrong way, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I just, because I a lot of the stuff that I've gotten to at this point now, I had to learn by literally making horrible mistakes. Like, really stuff. I'm like, wow, but luckily I took that stuff to really learn what not to do if I was to ever get, exposure or stuff like that. But I did some really cringy stuff, because I was just trying to get myself known into the community. And I wanted to kind of bring that up just so that way, like it gets taken out of the way and we can just talk about MK all day, um, but yeah. So I'm not kind of going off the rails, but to answer your question, yeah, basically it was, over the years, just constantly playing every title that came out, getting comfortable with the AI, knowing just the basics, of how MK plays. That's what really helped me to really, get into the tournament scene.
Well, don't worry about going off on a tangent because actually that does relate to some of the questions we have. So how exactly did you get further into the scene then? You teased it a bit with James Fink. So yeah, like what happened exactly?
So yeah, so I posted that video on Twitter, right? Because at the time I was already active on Twitter, and so that's when James noticed and he hit me up. It's like, hey, dude, like I saw that video, like I noticed you're doing, it's really cool, man. You want to come to my show? And the thing is, at the time I was already kind of listening to his show, it was just so cool how like he was giving people, because he would always say, it's like, man, I don't care if you're a top player, like whatever player, come to the show, give you exposure. This is the MK community. Like he was back then, he was really into the MK community, like trying to like get everybody, whether you're a high level player or like just casual or not even casual, but just you like story mode lore or whatever. I mean, he even brought in a lot of the like MK cast, where it's the movies or whatever, so this dude was pushing it, right? And so for him to come at me and be like, hey, you want to come to my show? It's like, what? Like, you actually want to be there? And dude, I was so nervous. I went on that episode like really nervous, man. Like I didn't know how to handle it, because I was like, I didn't know it's going to go this far, And so, and that show, that's when he announced, I see that you're trying to learn how to play the game. He's like, you know what? If you put the effort, whatever, I'm going to send you to Evo. So he's the one who sponsored me to go to Evo, actually.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He sponsored me to go to Evo. And then at what, when other people heard about what I was doing, there happened to be a local scene here in, because I'm from Houston, Texas. So there was a scene already here, like a local scene. And there was this group called Combat Houston. Shout out to those guys, by the way. Combat Houston was a group here in town that were running weeklies. Every Friday, they would stream like, their locals. They would, and I'm like, hey, I want to join that. Like, because at that point, I started going to a bunch of YouTube channels where they upload like combo videos, and I started learning the combos by sound. I was like, oh, so they're using these two hits, and then this, and then this move, and this move, and they just started piecing them together. And and I also discovered Test Your Might, like the website where they would actually write down the combos. So I was like, oh wow, look at this. They have the notations here on the website. So I could just like take that information, listen to the combo videos, and then apply them myself. And that's how I learned how to play Cyrex, because there was so much Cyrex content. I was so much, and I just went in on that. Like really, I was like, because then so what happens, what happened I started like, James got in contact with some of those guys, with the Combat Houston guys, and said, hey, like there's this player, of course they knew too. They're like, oh yeah, we saw that or whatever. And they're like, you want to come out and join us? And I was like, sure. And that's when like, I set up a ride to come pick me up, and I went to this dude's house. And I remember stepping in that room where they had like a bunch of MK setups, hearing like MK9 everywhere. I was like, whoa, this is cool, like everybody was just playing like matches and setup, and they're like, hey, you want to play? Like, yeah, like, and they were like, how do you play? And I kind of gave him a rundown. And I think every time I explain it, I think it makes people more confused, because maybe I don't do a good job at explaining. But I was telling them like, yeah, it's by sound. I'm able to tell, because in this game, I just realized that it's not in mono anymore. It's in stereo. So if I'm on the left side, my character is coming from left to right. I try to explain it to them.
So
And
wait, you play completely by sound?
Yes,
you don't
completely by sound. There's no I could even turn off my monitor and still play.
Wow. So there's no I thought maybe there was some special software or some audio clues that are kind of added into the game for the hearing impaired or for the visually impaired.
Not really. And that's literally what we're hoping now. But before it was just kind of adapting,
Wow.
So fun fact, and if everybody who's familiar with audio, if obviously mono and stereo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of the MK games up until MK versus DC is when everything was in mono, except the music. The fights were all in mono, from the first game all the way to Armageddon. But once the MK versus DC, they did switch it. Oh, I actually have to check. See, I can't remember anymore. I think it was still in mono. I don't remember. But MK9 was so different that the characters, you could definitely tell. If Scorpion was on the left side and I teleported, his sound would that whoosh sound would go across the screen as the image followed as well, the frames, and he will be on the right side as well. So the sound actually kind of followed the action of the characters. So that's now how games are made. Every single fighting game now, well, most games are now using stereo panning of their characters, except Tekken and basically a lot of Namco games are not in stereo.
Gosh, that's amazing. The precision that you have to be able to hear that and kind of pick up where everything is happening on screen. I find that remarkable.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just kind of adapt to. You get used to it, and you don't even think about it, right? Because it's hey, it's just to use normal. But obviously, for someone on outside coming in, it's man, how is that even possible, right? So yeah, I definitely get the reactions that I get a lot of the times. When once they find out, and even if I explain it, like I said, some people still feel like they get more confused. But it's really hard to explain. To where it really I guess universally, because I know some people if they understand audio, how it works, they tend to oh, I see what you're saying, because they obviously they've seen they can look at diagrams of audio and how the sound travels and all that, so they can kind of figure that out. But to everybody else, I feel I still don't get it. I feel like I still get that response.
That's really cool.
So you mentioned obviously you've been playing through sound, and that over time the game's changed from mono to stereo. How else has playing MK changed over the entries for you, over the years, other than mono and stereo? Was there anything else, say with frame data, etc.? How do you adapt to all that?
So I think MK9 was kind of the start of now learning a game deep in, right? Because and this was just me being kind of as a lurker, because again, I didn't know how to approach people. I didn't know how to conduct myself in these kind of situations. Even in the college level, I was kind of a loner. And so I still have friends. I have friends, obviously. I like hanging out and stuff, but I usually a lot of times I just kind of stuck to myself, and I didn't know how to handle myself, I guess.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah. So I would just kind of lurk in all of these websites. Like I said before, it all started with learning, kind of getting to know more about the lore. Because see, I didn't know lore details of all these characters until I started lurking on that Mortal Kombat online website. Because a lot of people will post summaries or they're a review of it, or they'll literally post the character endings, which of course I couldn't read, right? So I was oh wow, this is cool. I didn't know about these characters.
Might have come across some of my own posts.
Hey, probably. There you go, probably. So I was just there, browsing and really getting to oh, this is cool, So I will always look forward to a new. Now every time the new game came out, it's now I know these characters. Now I know the kind of the basic storylines. I want to know what's next, kind of thing, And so yeah, and that's how the games were before. But MK9 really set the stage, I feel for really getting to where people would, and a lot of people didn't realize that they were helping me by doing this, where they would post a video of like I said, combo, I was talking about previously about combo videos, but then they'll put the notations in there, how to do it and everything, and once I learned how to learn those combo notations, okay, so that's what really helped me out. So I feel like at first the way things kind of changed for me was first with the community, getting to know the community being very accepting, because like it all started once I got after James gave me that exposure. Like a lot of people were very welcoming. They were like, "Hey man," like at the end, it just felt like we just want to play. Yeah, we don't even care if you're blind or not. It got to that point, and I love it, man. Like when it got to that point, because even here in town, we used to practice every like Saturday or sometimes Friday nights, and we'll go there. Like all they care about is just for me to learn. It's like, oh man, it's gonna be hype. Wait till we go to Evo, man. People are gonna pop off when they see you play, So it's kind of like they were holding a secret, in a sense, right? They just like, it was so cool how they handle it,
That's
and they
awesome.
would teach me the tech. Like, oh, okay, he's like, they'll be like, Cyrex has this dirty, like breakable setup that you can do with his bombs, or he has all this stuff. And they will sit with me to practice it and practice it and practice it, and until I got it, so they were very patient, dude. Like,
That's so cool.
They were very patient. Like, and it was just so cool because the whole blindness thing just kind of went out the window after that. It was just like, oh, we're getting in, let's play. And then we used to play sets, and the first time the way I got into the group officially was to play everyone, and I remember beating a few of their like members, and they're like, bro, this guy can play, like they were like, this guy can play, that's cool. And basically they were saying we can do so much with that, so it was kind of like they were molding me to be like a tournament player too, and so yeah, like, so I saw the beginnings of like players like who are now pretty popular, like Star Charger, and all of those players like that. They were members of that, that team at the time. So that's how I got started. And then with MKX, was affected actually by Injustice. So Injustice introduced something that was new to just another realm in general, how they create their fighting games. They introduced interactables on the screen. So I remember at Evo, I was talking to Hector Sanchez, who's obviously no longer with those guys. But I remember he actually approached me, dude, really awesome guy. I miss the guy because things changed when he left. But he basically approached me like out there. He's like, hey man, we're really excited about what you did. He even told me people in the office were hyped watching you play that tournament, that match. So we want to know what can we do at the time. So like, so that was awesome, dude.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, and at the time, again, I didn't know how to handle this because it was just too much for me. So I was like, what is the easiest thing to fix right now? And I was like, maybe is there a way that you guys can make me put like a sound cue for interactables so I can know how to use them, because I want to use them in combos. I want to use them in setups. I know that I know for a fact that there's some in the corner that I could use, but I want to know if there's a way to keep track of them on the screen. And so they were like, okay, cool. We'll see what we can do about it, because obviously they can't promise anything. And we left it at that. Except to me, I'm like, yeah, why are they going to listen to somebody like me who's just like, happens to just play in tournaments and everything? Like, I don't know if they're going to do anything, but they actually listen. And I remember when they did an update in Injustice, like it had it, and it even said it on the patch notes. I was like, oh wow, this is cool.
That's amazing.
I was like, this is awesome, And of course, like, it wasn't seen as a big thing or anything, like as in the let's say in the blind community in general. It's like, yeah, it's just a sound or whatever, But to me, it was more like they actually listened to me. What is this, So to me, I took it as like, this is an opportunity,
This is funny because I don't even notice sound cues with the interactables. Like whenever you hover over them, I didn't even realize that was a thing because I'm just not used to looking out for that.
But the default is actually set to off, so you actually have to go in the options to turn them on. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so because I even told them, it's like, look, I don't want to also like do something that like it will deter players from like from like, it's like, hey, what is this? What's going on here? Whatever. But I realized that actually the community, now this is not, now we'll get into that, I guess, but so that was like a major change, like being the fact that they actually listened to me, and I was like, this is awesome, dude. And so when MKX came out, once interactables were introduced in Mortal Kombat, now they still kept like those sound cues, so it's like, okay, so now we're thinking about it now, so let's just put it in there. So it's like it became like a default thing if they're gonna continue to have interactables. And so I was like, they actually did it, so cool. So yeah, so I feel like first MK9 was a community. Next, it was just the some accessibility, because I mean we still got a long way to go, but it just came. That's how it changed. And in MKX, I say I wasn't as active in the tournament scene because I was going through some personal lifestyle. I just got out of college, getting a new job, all that stuff. So I was more of a casual in there. I still played at the high level later on down the line, but it was kind of like towards the end of the MKX cycle, like as far as tournaments went. So I wasn't, yeah.
If they had come back to you and asked you now, what are some of the things that you would have changed about it? I mean, are there some other obstacles that you think need to be overcome and that could be adapted better for the blind community?
In fighting games, so by nature, fighting games tend to be kind of pretty much accessible for the blind. You know, if you have good sound, like spatial sound, like if you can tell whatever. So to us, a lot of it now is more about like having access to the menus. So I think one of the things that are more commonly known now is, well, people call them TTS or text to speech software, but we call them screen readers. They're called screen readers. So they're fully fleshed software that reads everything on screen through keyboard commands. Like if I'm talking like on the PC right now, for example, if I just go a command, I can go to my desktop, or I could do a command, or I can go to my Chrome browser and just use the corresponding commands or buttons to get to like the edit field, do search, go links, click on a video. The video player is accessible where it says pause, resume, or it says mute, or a seek slider where it says like how far you want to go into the video. So that stuff reads it all to you, everything, right? So what I'm hoping that we can see this in fighting games is that to have some kind of text to speech or a screen reader in the game that reads all of the menus, like when you enter the main screen, when you go into the options menu, and when you go into the the options menu on the practice mode, for the frame data, or like if you want to read the character moves, or if you want to set your character to like wake up during like a if you're practicing setups or whatever, I think that will be like the next huge step of evolution. And a game that's non-fighting has already done that. I don't know if you guys seen The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yes, The Last of Us, dude. That game is the the game that's kind of tells everybody, look, this is how you would do accessibility. Now, keep in mind though that accessibility that they have now, they didn't reinvent the wheel. That's stuff from a lot of players, blind players, who took their time to like try these other games other than fighting and kind of like found their way around them. Like Resident Evil 6, for example, which is like the worst in the series from a lot of people's opinions, but for the blind community, for a lot of us, is the best one because it has a tracking system. Like if where you need to go, you push one of the trigger buttons and it sets you back where you need to go on your objective. So automatically kind of helps me to like get to where I need to go for, for the next objective. There's also like the audio on the game is also ridiculously good. Like you can tell if a zombie's coming from the left side, like slightly, and if it's getting closer, it's getting slightly to the right, or if it's centered, you can actually hear it in the middle, like like the audio wise. And you can aim at it without having to use any like aim assist. I think you can, but if you can, you can just go by the sound too, and like do headshots and all that. And and so a lot of stuff is just from like that came from a lot of players throughout the years, just saying, look, I try to play these games, but they're not accessible. But these are some of the barriers that hopefully you guys can address to make it accessible, kind of thing. So yeah, The Last of Us did not reinvent the wheel. I want to make sure that goes on record. That did not reinvent the wheel. No, this is like, that comes from the result of like, because they actually hired 3 blind players that worked with the game. They kept it on the wraps for 3 years, actually. Wow. So yeah. So, and a lot of these players, of course, they tried other titles and, went as far as the game would allow them to go as a blind player, I guess. And that's where a lot of the ideas surfaced from. So The Last of Us, going back to fighting games, they have what I want in a fighting game, which is a full screen reader, dude. Like every time I browse the game, like even when I pick up items, it tells me what it is. Oh, I just picked up a bottle of alcohol. Oh, I just picked up like 4 weapon parts. Oh, I just picked up a journal entry. And then I press a button and it reads the entire journal entry on it, or like like a message that somebody left behind or whatever. It reads everything, dude. It's incredible. Like it's amazing. So if they add some kind of like something like that to fighting games, like where it reads everything as you're scrolling through like the menus and everything, that would be awesome. Because one of the main things that we don't have full access to right now, which we do just by memorizing it, or someone else writes the menus down in order for us, is customization in MK11. it sucks because it doesn't read it to you. We don't know what we're doing, like we just, like I right now customize my character because we have friends who write the moves list or the abilities list in order that appears on screen. And so if I go into the menu, I was like, okay, I just count. Let me go 3 times, and I found this move. And then after that, I gotta go two times down to go to the other move that I can equip. And there, I got my 2 moves because one of them has 2 slots, kind of thing. So it's all written down on a document. So that's the only way we can access a lot of the stuff.
I mean, so how does the rest of Mortal Kombat 11 kind of compare to more like the past Mortal Kombat games, even Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 9? Do you feel like it's gotten better for the visually impaired, or is it still lacking in a lot of ways, like you mentioned with the menus?
It's kind of gone both ways, interestingly, actually, because if you notice, they did try actually to address that menu narration thing with Jamison Price reading the menus as you scroll. But the problem with that is that it's not a software, right? It's someone reading the menu, so of course it has its limitations. That they're not going to do that. Let's say if a pop-up message comes up on screen, like Jamison Price isn't magically going to appear and read that for you. He's not going to summon him like, hey bro, you got to read this. No. So, it's limited with the software or the way like The Last of Us did. I don't know if it's coded. I actually want to know how they did it, because if a pop-up message comes up, it'll read it to you. It'll tell you like, oh, like whatever it is, whatever type of like pop-up message, it comes up. So it's because it's implemented into the game, and it's not limited to just like reading and that's it. No, it's actually like it captures whatever message pops up on the screen. So that in a sense, they definitely try to improve it for sure. You got to give credit where credit is due, because I see what they were trying to do, which is awesome, because I was hyped when that came out. I made a video about it too, and I was like, man, this is cool. It's a step forward. Yeah. But where they did kind of went backwards a little bit was in the sound design of the fighting. So MKX in the blind community is probably known as by far the best game that really, really lets you know where your character is positioned on screen, even if you and your opponent are in the corner. It's very, very like the spatial awareness on that game is ridiculous, dude. Like if I'm full screen, my character sounds will only come out, let's say if I'm on the left side, only on the left speaker, and you will not hear it on the right speaker, because they're literally full screen, So they really panned it out all the way, like across the screen accordingly. And the further to the right the character moves, the further, the sound is starting to kind of hear it on the right side of your speaker as well, but obviously fully on the left side, but kind of you can hear it moving from left to right slowly as your character's, walking forward. But if it runs, of course, you can hear like character running across the screen right away, So MKX is by far like the best audio when it comes to spatial awareness. But MK11, what they did is I feel like they kind of shortened that out. Like the panning is way too like, what happens when you and yourself and your opponent are in the corner, the sound like as if it goes back to the center. So it sounds like we're mid screen, even though we're clearly like on the corner. So it does little things like that. This is like nitpicking, by the way. This is like hardcore nitpicking. But those are some of the things that we notice in MK11. So in this game, I do find it difficult sometimes. When I do a corner setup, like if I like I attempt like a corner BMB, like sometimes I won't hit because I'm not in the corner. Like my opponent's not in the corner, and so I drop it. Or vice versa. I do a mid screen combo, but because it's the opponent's in the corner, so some hits will miss. Because of the gravity of the properties. So it's again, it's nitpicking, and I don't even know if I'm explaining it correctly, but
no, you're definitely explaining it. Like we get it, and we asked you to nitpick, so don't worry.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's basically how it is. So I feel like that's something that, because what we kind of came to realize, I think they were using the sound engine from Injustice 2. Injustice 2 kind of had that issue because the stages are so big, right? So it really doesn't reflect how big they are in sound wise, because it only goes from left to middle to right. That's it. I can't tell if I'm like half a screen away, full screen away, or like maybe just like a little bit to the right or to the, like it's just very linear. Like
that's
middle,
quite an important
left,
sound
right.
cue for you to have. So yeah, I can definitely understand why that would be a huge issue for you.
Yeah, so that's so that's how over the years how MK games changed. And of course, now like I'm glad that NRS is watching. They're paying attention, and like to things like that, because my goal was always to not just be me, because for a while it was just me, like in the front end, I guess, because I was known because of James, like when I got into the scene or whatever. But then more people started coming out and being, getting involved, and and some of them veered out obviously to other things, like that they did as far as gaming wise. But I was always the MK guy. And even to this day, people say like, "Oh, Rattlehead," that, like the tournament player, And so whenever like other people. Like other people go to their friends and say, "Hey, I fought Rattlehead." They're like, "Oh my god, you fought Rattlehead? That's cool." And I'm like, "Really?" So yeah, so that's
a
how it is
cool
now.
feeling.
Yeah, I was like, wow, I didn't know I had that effect. But that's cool. It's humbling, honestly, dude, because I was just doing it, and I always tell like people around me, it's like, I just wanted the to because if you don't have a community, then there's no point. Like, why is a company going to invest on something that only one person is doing it, or just a few people, But if you have a whole community behind you, they'll see, oh, okay, that's where money's going to. So right on, So you gotta you also have to know what they're gonna get out of it,
Yeah, for sure. I do have a question which relates back to, you mentioned The Last of Us 2 with the accessibility and everything. How has your experience been with haptic feedback with MK? Has that changed at all?
Not really, because they haven't even used it. As far as like, yeah, I haven't used it. But how we have a friend of ours on now that we're like involved in it and just in the overall FGC, right? And this guy, he goes, we were just playing one night, and he goes, dude, wouldn't it be cool if they actually made it haptic feedback where if they hit highs, the vibration will be at the top of the controller. If it's mids, in the middle. If it's lows, at the bottom of the controller.
This is exactly what I was wondering.
Dude, I was like, I didn't even think of. I was like, dude, like, bro, like, I was like, that's a sick idea, And he even tweeted that, tagging some of the NRS people, because it's like, yeah, like those are just like some ideas to kind of get, and that's like during matches only, So that would have been something cool to do, but no, as of right now, not really. There's no like, major usage of that haptic feedback yet.
It seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. That would have been great.
That would have been an awesome idea. I would have been all over that. That would have been pretty cool to really follow even more. Because see, another thing with MK11 too, though, is that some of their sounds are very generic as well. So it's hard to tell if like I'm using Scorpion for example. His back one and his back two sound like almost the exact same, even though they have different properties. So whenever I'm in the middle of a match, if I'm playing against another Scorpion, if they're doing their back two, it has 2 hits. So if I'm thinking like, oh, it's the back one, so maybe they're gonna do like cancel, or they're gonna do whatever, I'm all these mind games going on. But I let go of block and I get hit by the second like automatic hit that comes out of the back two, Yeah. And I'm like, oh god, and that move is so unsafe. If I would have blocked those 2 hits, oh, that's it, it's over. It's like so negative that I could literally go do something else, come back and still punish, So it's like those things, it's so, but it's like, oh my god, So it's like little things like that really it was kind of rough to to kind of adjust, but we do what we can, with the game.
Do you consider yourself at a disadvantage when you're playing against like some of these other members from the fighting game community that aren't blind, or do you feel like you have enough visual cues to where I mean, of course, you're winning tournaments and things like that, but how do you feel? I guess is the question.
Because you did mention you'd beaten a few of them when you were when you just joined up with James Fink.
It is a disadvantage by default, and that's whether I like to admit it or not. Because sometimes I try not to, just because I want that mindset of like, you know what, like I'm gonna use the fact that they're kind of still in shock that they're blind, that I'm blind, and they're like kind of still processing it. So let me just go in all out, So I kind of use that. But other than that, but other than that, there is that like like literally disadvantage of they can actually outspace you because they can see. They can also see as soon as you let go of block, because that happens to me. It happened to me a few times. Like, and actually at a recent tournament I was playing online, where the player was so good at reacting. As soon as I let go of block to do a move, he was already like hitting me with like a 6 frame down one from Geras, or like, or so it's like, whoa, so as soon as I let go of block, they do, and I get that a lot. So, and then of course, when I try to outspace them, they all follow me, so it's like, they always keep tracking on me further down. And again, because of the sound doesn't let me know how far, what's the distance between me and my opponent. So sometimes if I'm full screen, I want to throw the spear as a way to kind of zone them out a little bit. But if I do that and happen to be like nearby,
Very
they
unsafe.
could literally just super unsafe, and so that really causes me like sometimes the round or the entire match.
Does that make you feel like switching back to MKX at times rather than MK11?
Sometimes, yeah, because I even do this with like, even my other fellow blind players. You're like, you know what, let's just play MKX, man, because it's like more fun, more, and then more combos as well, like more, more variety, whereas MK11 is very linear.
I'd rather play MKX too, so
there you go. There's more creativity in MKX when it comes to like combo potential setups. I mean, it's heavily 50-50. Everybody knows that, but yeah. It turns out that it is pretty fun once you get going, and both ends. If everybody's broken, then hey, whatever, But but it's not like MK11 where Jackie's so broken that she's literally playing an entire different game than the rest of the cast. So
I love that I'm not the one hitting on Jackie right now. It's not me, guys.
No, I hate that character. That character pisses me off. I hate that character.
I'm with you.
It's so annoying. Yeah,
carry MKX, carry MK11.
I've gotten beaten, and again, I know because sometimes being an FGC can make you sound very elitist. I know that for a fact. So when I say this, I don't mean it that way, but I hated that I lost to a Jackie who really wasn't playing the character at the highest level. It's like, this pisses me off, because I'm out here trying to like go by frames, go by the data, go by like the setups and everything, but I'm still getting punished, or like I'm still losing to like this randomness,
Well, so, yeah, that actually relates to a question I wanted to ask you. So your experience with MK11, because based on what I've been seeing from the community reactions, MK11, yes, you can be very good, and obviously, like say a pro player will have a lot less trouble versus somebody who's just picked up the game and is plays every so often. But with MK11 compared to say MKX, that player has a way better chance, it seems, than they did in MKX at beating that pro player. If that makes sense. Did I go?
It makes it makes total sense, dude, because I think that's why people get so heated with Combat League, because you see players getting away with the most random things. Like frame data doesn't matter, dude. Like it
Exactly.
really doesn't matter in this game. Like, oh my God. Like even if I'm plus on whatever, if they're mashing like so hard, somehow the game says, okay, yeah, let's give it to them. Whatever. It's like, oh my God, dude, and it's like, you can't get away from it, like it's everywhere. But again, because I see what NetherRealm tries to do, though, when you really step back and look at it. Like, they do try to cater to the casuals. Like, again, I hate how the FGC sounds very elitist by default.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's like, dude, like, that's cool and all, but there should be a gap, like in MKX, you could clearly tell who is a good player versus like a really, just pushing buttons here player, or I just learned this, cool combo that I know how to do. Oh my God, this is great. I'm proud of it, But when it comes to mixing, mind games, shimmies, like wake ups, like Oki setups, all that stuff doesn't work with randoms, because they'll just do whatever, And like in MK11, the game lets them get away with it. Whereas in MKX, you really have to know how to play the characters, like to display them at its full potential. You have to have good execution. You have to have like really good understanding of your character, your opponents as well, because you have to basically, as long as you guess correctly, and if you know what buttons to punish with, then you're good to go, kind of thing, So there was like that gap, and even in MK9 as well. MK9, even though it's so like broken, but you could still tell who was like high level players versus just your average player that just wants to play for fun or whatever. So there was that.
What are your stats like competitively? Like how many wins, losses, placements do you have?
I think because I have it on all platforms, but I think because I play the most on PlayStation. But I think it's like the ratios, it's like a 50-50-ish, I guess. Like I have like somewhere around like 1,000+ wins and maybe like close to 900 or 1,000 losses as well. But I'm blaming the Combat League on that.
I agree.
Because when I lose to like players that know what they're doing, it actually, I'm learning, right? So it's like a learning play. Yeah, I'm learning, and I'm like, oh, okay, I shouldn't do that anymore. Or, I know that it's me at that point. Like, oh, okay, whatever. So I honestly, with MK11, I find myself having fun when I'm playing with like my friends, or like even like. To this point, again, we got to the point where like I get top players show up on my streams, or like, or like even say, hey, we get some games, or like they'll invite me to exhibitions. Like I've been playing exhibitions on MKX on for this past few months, and like, well, not this couple of months, but I've been playing it, and then, like, I get invited, that's like, to get to that point, I was like, that's cool, man. Like, I like that the people are reaching out to me, like, hey, you want to play my exhibitions, and I did some MK11 exhibitions as well, where like we pulled some really hype matches, and I remember listening to the commentary afterwards when I watched the replay. I'm like, I didn't know I was bringing this much hype. Let's go. I was just like, because, so that's really cool to have that, like, I guess now people consider me as a prominent MK member. Like, people hear my name, they'll like, oh, that's Rattlehead. That's the blind MK player, So, so that's cool to have that.
When you're playing online, I mean, have you been playing like Towers of Times and stuff like that too? Or how does consumables kind of factor into your playing style?
I probably didn't do. I feel like the later games, I feel like their mini games or like their offline stuff, I feel like it's not as robust as, like, let's say the 3D era.
Yes,
like in the 3D era, dude, was so like well thought out. Like, it was, you had chess combat, which is awesome. You had like the whole conquest mode, right? You had like even puzzle combat. Like, that one I couldn't play because it was literally visual, right? You had to stack the colors, So that one I was like, this sucks, because I actually have a MK, like, what do you call it? I have the UMK3 on the Nintendo DS, and you know how it comes with that one? I'm like, man, I wish it would have came with chess combat instead, instead of that the puzzle combat. But yeah, that's basically it. Like, I feel like the Towers of Time, or like, how they introduced it in MKX, those towers, whatever, like, I feel like they got boring after a while. Like, it felt like a chore, like, doing that, like, because I was like, oh God, I have to do my character towers now. Or like, I have to do this, I honestly haven't even completed a lot of the character towers because I just got like, it just feels like a chore. It's not fun,
I was just going to say, like, I mean, the only reason that I could see you having to do any of these towers would be for brutalities, because obviously the aesthetics, like the skins and stuff, don't really matter, right?
Yeah, they don't matter. Yeah,
so it'd just be the brutalities.
Brutalities, yeah. But it's funny though, because it's funny you say that, because I'm all about, like, even though I'm visually impaired or I'm blind or whatever, like, I'm always the type of person that I know I live in the sighted world. So I want to also make things look cool too, like, because people are going to be looking at it, that just because I'm not going to see doesn't mean, like, my audience shouldn't, So I hunt for the costumes too, actually, like,
Fair
I
enough.
remember when I put in the MK9 costume, like, it's like, oh, hell yeah, like MK9, like, costume, so I was like, okay, hey, I'm bringing the hype somehow, so I like doing that too, though. So, like, even though I can't see it, I'm like, you know what, let me just do it for the people, kind of thing, because I whether we like to admit it or not, I live in a sighted world. I have to adapt to it. The world's not going to adapt to me, so let's just roll with it. And that's always been my motivation to kind of do what I do. To especially playing video games. Like, who would think that, I guess people who don't know, right? Who would think like, oh, how do you play video games if you're blind? That's literally the first question that comes up for somebody who doesn't know, like, or who's not aware of that people actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I came across, this is my own experience, I suppose, but I came across somebody in Combat League, and we had a few matches, and they beat me a couple of times, I beat them a couple of times, and, you get to know the username sometimes, right? And we got talking, and it turns out he was blind. So my first question was, other than me first saying, whoa, you're amazing. How are you playing? And, finding out the first time, I was absolutely shocked. So yeah, I can definitely understand that would be the first question for most people.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. Yeah. So that's why, like, it's about also, like, yeah, okay, that's cool. But then at the same time, it's like, I want to make sure that people who, like, play against me or who watch the streams or whatever, because I stream and everything, and that's how I got to get known more as well. That I want them to at least look at something different, not just look at the default skins all day. That's to me, that sounds boring. So let's change it up a bit.
Okay. So
yeah,
with that, so for me, I've always chosen characters based on lore and, say, aesthetic, right? For you, how would you pick your mains? How, like, other than, say, Scorpion and Cyrax, because you've explained those characters, how would you pick other characters that you like? Does difficulty help in your choice of playing and not playing them? Are there specific characters who are easier for you to play as or even play against?
I like sort of in the middle of high execution based characters, and, like, that makes you kind of stand out, and I guess for me also as a blind player, like, I want to be like, I can pull that off, like, just because I can't see, I'm gonna go ahead and do it too. Like, recently I started playing Cabal,
All
And
right.
I actually equipped his slide gas, like that leap move that he does when you like do like an instant jump and then you do that
Hang
back
time
four
in the
three.
air.
Yeah, dude. So I learned those BMBs. Actually, one of the top Cabal players, like, I messaged him. It's like, hey, dude, like, what's the tech? You know, and he's like, oh, it's this and this and this, and he broke it down for me. I was like, because a lot of people know now, apparently, you know. So it's like, oh, it's like this, you know, you do this way, and you want to time it like this, so you know. So this dude broke it down for me, and so I just went back and I started practicing, and I'm like, oh, here we go, we're pulling it off. And that's the same feeling I got with Cyrax, being like, oh, okay, this stuff is actually not that easy to pull off. So let me work on it. you know. So that's the kind of that's what makes me want to pick a main as well. And of course, as long as I know that I'm actually gonna be doing okay with the character, because sometimes you could be high execution like Fujin, for example, in this game, and I'm not feeling it for some reason. It just doesn't click with me.
He's
Um,
very tricky timing based. I'm a Fujin main until
the,
rain dropped. So yeah.
that's why. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I heard too. So it's like, you know what? But and it sucks because now I don't have the time like I used to. You know, when MK9, I had all day. Or like since I was in college, I would finish my homework and just be like, you know what? I'm gonna just play some MK. You know, when MK9 dropped, I literally skipped school like for the whole week. I was like, I'm playing MK9 all day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I did that. So, but now it's not like that anymore. But I still want to, at least play, because I want to give my, like, especially like I said, when I stream, I want people to like, because my goal is always this, right? I don't want it to just play the game, learn a few moves, and be like, oh yeah, I can play Mortal Kombat, but I'm blind. Yay, I didn't want to do that. I want to be like, I can play Mortal Kombat. Let's run a few sets, and boom, there you go. I want it to be like that.
You were kind of mentioning earlier, how like when you're learning these combos and stuff, you're getting the information from other players, or even at the beginning, how you were kind of doing one-on-one with people. Tell me a little more. How do you specifically learn these characters? Is it just people are giving you move sets and then you're kind of practicing it, or is there more to this method?
So before, it was literally what you just said, right? Just learning that, like I was find the character moves, like all the inputs and everything, and just go and practice the scenarios or like combos or whatever, like build it in muscle memory. And that's all I had at the time, especially like when I really started learning how to like do more like actual setups, or like how to counter specific moves, learning frame data and all that stuff. That's when it hit me, like that was like an empty MK9 days. And since then, it's been more like getting that very extensive information and applying it, And once I got involved in the community, it was more like, hey, do you have time? Let's run a set and like actually like put it into a real match, So now I have the ability to really reach out to people and like, hey man, let's play. Can we run this set real quick? I'm trying to learn this matchup, Whereas I didn't have that before the MK9 days, until I joined this group, here in town, where I could literally say, hey, can you give me, I need practice against this other character, And they're like, okay, because he made that character, so they knew it by heart. So I was like, okay, let me play this guy or whatever. So that's little by little, that's how I started coming out like that. Is getting that, not just the resources of having it written down or whatever, but actually getting the actual experience against someone who mains that character.
Are there any characters that seem to be easier for blind players to play?
A lot of people, even in the FGC, right? A lot of people who like, because there's a few people that have actually learned how to play with their monitors off, because we made them. Because we made them. It's like, turn off your monitor, echo grounds, and a lot of people are willing to do, especially top players. Like, you know what? Like, I'm at my peak, so let me just do something different now, and they'll do it, So, one of them is actually Geras. Like,
really?
It's easier, yeah. With Geras, you can always down fort into his sand trap, and like, or you can always use it to kind of like bait your opponent to do whatever. And there, you can always make your opponents do stuff like in your favor if you can. You gotta basically establish that rhythm. So that's one of the good characters that I would definitely like suggest. Scorpion is kind of like the go-to for a lot of blind players, just because he's so easy to pick, It's like a lot of, so I remember when I picked, it's like, there's yet another blind player picking Scorpion, that was like kind of like the inside joke within the blind community, because everybody plays them, but then I'll be like, yeah, but they don't play them at a high level, or whatever. I just, just kind of go back and forth with your friends or whatever. But there's, I guess, characters that have good tracking moves, I guess, that's what really helps, a blind player, if they has really good tracking moves that allow your opponent to like, your character to, track where your opponent's located. That does help a lot,
What about playing against somebody? Is there a character that is easier for you to beat up on?
A bunch of scorpions that happen.
It was always going to be Scorpion.
Yeah, it was the Computer Combat League over and over. Or what's another character that I'm like, not like this is so like whatever. It's probably if it's a Liu Kang player. Like, for a fact that it was gonna do 4-3, 4-4, and then they'll do random like what do you call it, like flying kick, like on block. Like I'm literally holding block and they still do it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude, no, So that's like super easy. So what I've learned to do lately is just to be patient now, because once I go, because I'm a very rush down player. Like I like just going in, mix ups, down pokes, grabs, throw, like like back three or whatever, and then if it connects, then of course full combo confirm, But I learned to I started to learn even lately now. I started to, I just gotta be patient. Otherwise, like my play style is what causes me the matches a lot of the times as well.
So we talked about the customization in terms of aesthetics. How has the implementation of custom variations affected your experience with, say, learning or even coming up against people? Because obviously with MKX, say you had 3 variations per character, but now you have 1 million per character.
Oh my God. So remember how I mentioned about like not having access to that, right? So for a while, like when they unlocked the custom variations, like for you to do whatever, I was in this, like, I guess like a stage where I'm like, man, I think I might be done with this game because I don't have full access to this, like how am I gonna be able to figure out what moves are being used or whatever, So, but luckily, and it's funny because I had this written guide all along. One of our friends in a community, he had one of his friends also, like they both collaborated on writing this full guide of the entire game of where the moves are, all that stuff, what they do and everything. So I was like, dude, I forgot I had this since last year, and it's constantly being updated, obviously, whenever new characters come out. So that's when I was like, yeah, you know what? Let me use this. And so I actually just started going and customizing the common variations I see in tournament and like, to come across them. And then I set those up and then I can start labbing against them. So that's how I approach that.
As far as like as far as the blind fighting game community and the not blind fighting game community, how is the relationship between the two?
It's been good for the most part. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people are hesitant because of this whole, I feel like sometimes people do kind of look a little too much into the whole blind thing. It's like, nah, we just want to play, period, But for the most part, it's been great, man. Like I said, I get top players like coming by my stream a few times and getting sets, and like especially they get surprised when we go back and forth a little bit because obviously they're still gonna win most of the time. But they get like, and it gets hype, and they're like, "Oh, that's just awesome!" They'll support and everything, and then they're saying this, and then of course sometimes I go to the streams and just hang out, and they like, "Oh, that's Rattlehead! Shout outs to my boy!" Like they'll give me a shout out. They'll tell their friends, "Hey, this player is like badass. He actually is legit," and they'll say like, "I'm not just saying that just to like whatever because he's blind. No, like he's actually a good player. Go hit him up or whatever." So like. It's been great, and that's not just me too. Like it's been like more people are getting involved now. And in regards to like the relationship, I think what we did last year really showcased like how people supported what we're doing. We ran a all blind tournament last year in June. It's called the Cento Showdown.
Where's that at?
Well, the archives are actually on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I plug in my channel or not, but I guess,
yeah, definitely.
Oh, no, definitely, yeah. We're gonna link this.
Right on. It's a YouTube. Was it .com/? It has my first initials and last name and my it's CH Vasquez 86. I wasn't able to change the URL. Rip. So it's that way. But that's my YouTube channel. It's under OBS KH Rattlehead. If you search that as well, like it'll pop up the YouTube channel.
We'll link the direct playlist or video or however long it is and however many links it is. We're definitely gonna put them in because this sounds awesome.
Yeah. So we ran a tournament and
was it all online?
All online, yeah, all online. We had great support on it, man. Like what happened basically. we set it up and everything. We announced it. People spread the word and everything. So we did pool play. We had around 16 participants. I think one of them dropped, unfortunately, due to weather.
How large is the blind fighting game community?
It's still pretty small in comparison to like the rest of the FGC, but the thing is, it's growing. A lot of more people are coming out, to that say, "Oh, I heard about other blind players who play MK. Let's, so they'll show up, like
That's
so.
cool.
Yeah, so a lot of more people are showing up. So yeah, and I think what helped is running that tournament, which by the way was hosted by Another Realm Studios on the top when we did top 8. They hosted it. Yeah, they hosted it. And so, yeah. And then of course we also got support behind the scenes, where we got giveaways. We actually gave away PlayStation codes for Aftermath at the time. We also and then we, of course, for us, rather than doing like money prizes, how a lot of tournaments is like, oh, you get paid or whatever. What we did to make it more tangible is we actually gave away, first place got an Xbox One and a controller with letters in Braille that says the Central Showdown on it. Like
sick.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's so
dude.
cool.
And then the second place got an arcade stick and that Spawn figure from the
Really?
Spawn series, the MK11 Spawn. They got that one. And then the third is I think it was MK. It was the Scorpion's Revenge movie, and I forgot the other prize. I know somebody probably blow me up in the comment section when this comes out. But yeah, so we did tangible stuff, like stuff that people can keep, and like the participants were like, yeah, this is so cool that there was a tournament for blind players, and there was like prizes and stuff. So yeah, so it had a lot of support. It was amazing. And we're early discussions, so hopefully we might run as the Central Showdown Part 2.
Cool.
You'll have to let us know so we can let people know that it's happening.
Yeah,
Right
definitely.
Right on.
So I have a question which relates to the picking like highly technical characters. You've mentioned Fujin. I am obviously quite partial to Rain. Have you given him a go at all? I'm curious to hear your feedback on him if you have, or come up against him much.
On Rain, you mean?
Rain, yeah.
I think what turned me off at first, I don't know if you guys remember that whole fiasco with the sound with that. Well, I forgot which movie it was, but it was so loud. It was ear piercing.
It's when he throws his Qatar.
The Qatar. Oh my God. It was like, that used to hurt my ear so bad. But, and obviously everybody too. But now I think, honestly, I haven't gotten a chance to really play as him, because, and this is more due to time, that stuff has been happening. But, he's from the moment they announced him, dude, he sounded badass, that. Yes. Just the way. And I remember that they said that, and they referenced it when he does the wind pose, even from the aesthetics like that, doing the wind pose, the classic one, and the way they did his sound effects, the water effects, everything, it just sounds so like the character feels awesome. I think they did a good. You can tell they spent a lot of time with him. Player wise, I haven't had a chance to really learn his stuff, but now that you mention it, I'm actually gonna try him, because I've been trying to other characters just to kind of keep the game alive for me, and because Cabal did that, brought it back. So I was kind of getting bored of Scorpion. It's literally the same thing, just cancels and a few BMBs here and there that are that's some stuff. But other than that, everybody knows that matchup, so it's hard to win with him now at a high level, because he does have a lot of weaknesses.
Yeah.
But Rain, I definitely want to. I think he's my next two character to go and try him out.
I think you'll really like him. He's quite technical. So you mentioned you like playing technical characters, and if you were handling Cyrax and MK9, I think you're really gonna like him.
You know what? I'm gonna take your word for it too, because that's another character that I've been thinking about, to really, because I played Jade. I played, and then it got boring. I played what else? Because Jade, I just learned it in 5 minutes, and I was already good with that character. Especially with because I know that people do get surprised when you do the hit her forward 2-1 and then you do down ones, because it's like the frames are tight on that, the corner BMBs, they're pretty tight. So that's I got that down, no problem. But yeah, now I'm more interested in checking out, really getting into Rain and see what he brings to the table.
All right.
So Rattlehead, before we let you go, can you tell us what is your favorite finisher, your favorite fatality, brutality? If you have any brutality stocked up, what's your favorite ending move on Mortal Kombat?
Oh, let's see. I have so many, because can I give you one by actually seeing it, and then one with just sounds, the way it sounds?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So the visual one, the one that just looks so whoa, what is this? Is obviously Sub-Zero's classic Spine Rip. that was just like, and I was a kid, dude. So it's like, whoa, that's like one of those things that just hits you like, am I supposed to be watching this? You know? So that's my all-time favorite. Like, you know, okay, so check this out. Funny story. Like, I know, I think it's MK Trilogy, right? You know how they censored it?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So to me, that was my transition phase. We're like, okay, so I guess I won't be able to see that anymore. Because like, all right, they're literally censoring it for me in real life. This sucks, you know. Yeah. So that's my my all time favorite. Now, as far as like sound wise, I think one like my favorite has to go with you know that's fatality from Noob when he throws the what do you call it, the clone inside of you and then he pops out of your I think it comes out of your mouth, right?
Yeah.
That just sounds so disgusting, dude.
It is.
And I love it. And I love it. It's like, oh, you know, but the sucks is I don't main that character, otherwise I would do it. But you know, when somebody does, I was like, you know, but my second runner-up has to be Baraka's. You know, the face-off fatal when he pulls off the face. That one's just I remember when they showed it on the event and people in the crowd were like, whoa, what is this? It's like, you know, the reaction was ridiculous on that fatal. I was like, yeah, but I would say that was hard to pick, man. That was really hard to pick because there's so many. There's so many. But those are my two. As far as one is with visuals, the other one's just sound.
So tell us, you already mentioned your YouTube channel. Where else can our listeners find you?
You guys definitely can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is at OBSKH Rattlehead. By the way, shout outs again. OBS is the On Blast show, which was from James Fink. That's why I still use that to this day. And KH was because of the guys from Combat Houston here in, so I always kind of kept that, here and there as well, because paying homage to that era, because those guys were really awesome helping me out. So yeah, it's at OBSKH Rattlehead is my Twitter. My Twitch, I stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, like 3-hour streams where I play MK usually. Sometimes we do bring other games, like what we were streaming Resident Evil 6 a lot of the times. And we're having hilarious moments because, characters running into the walls, but still, fighting each other somehow, So, if you want to come by and have a good laugh, come by and just hang out and just, and enjoy the show. So, but it's at my Twitch is just OBS Rattlehead. At my Twitch, it's twitch.tv/OBS Rattlehead.
So I have to ask, how did the name Rattlehead come about?
And what does that mean?
It's actually a character from one. I'm a huge heavy metal fan, and
that's what I thought.
That's a band, Megadeth.
Yes,
they literally have a song called Rattlehead.
Okay,
and they also have a mascot. His mascot is Vic Rattlehead, so that's where I got it from.
Cool. All right. Well, Rattlehead, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Seriously, thanks for joining. It was really fun.
No, yeah, you guys, thank you for having me. I know we could probably do this forever. I could talk forever, honestly. There's so much I feel like I didn't even touch upon, but I want to thank you guys for giving me the space and the opportunity, because you guys have some great interviews that I've been checking out. Again, I'm a lurker, so I've been kind of checking out a lot of the stuff you guys have been doing, and so I'm looking forward to what other episodes you guys have coming up. But again, thank you guys for having me.
And thank you again for joining us. For everybody who's been listening, I mean, go check out Rattlehead stuff. He's got some great gameplay videos on his YouTube, and a super friendly guy. Chat to him on Twitter like we do. Yeah, because I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who has been supporting me with a lot of the stuff that I've been doing throughout the years, especially my Central Showdown team, which consists of Blindside Blue, Captain Earshot, who's our co-commentator and our first place winner of last year's Central Showdown. And then, of course, Baron's Son and Your Sins. Those are my other fellow blind players who have been directly involved with me with the Central Showdown. And so we're looking forward to hopefully, creating a new one for our the rest of the fellow blind community. So stay tuned. And again, thank you guys for having me. Awesome. Rattlehead, thank you. This is so interesting to us, and
seriously,
I'm glad we got to sit down with you, because I had no understanding at all of how the blind community, fighting game community, functioned. So this has been a lot of insight for me to hear.
No, it's been a lot of fun discussing it, man. I've been holding a lot of stuff so bad. It's like, this is cool to finally talk about it and everything. Because like I said, I had no idea how to do this stuff. Like I had to learn from really making some horrible mistakes. If you guys go watch that episode of the Blast show, I think it was like episode 39 or 30. I was way back, but I sound so cringe. I'm like, that's me. Holy crap, that's terrible. It was so bad, but hey, that's how you learn, right?
Direct the viewers to your real blind player plays Kenshi versus Rain.
It's still there. It's still there. It's still, and it's against Rain. It's against like Rain. I remember when that DLC came out, so it's there. Oh my god, yeah. It's actually one of my first ever uploaded videos in there. It's still there. I was about to delete it, and actually one of my friends was like, "No, dude,
don't you dare!"
He's like, "Do not delete that." You know,
we need to put a link to that also in the description.
Yeah, it's.
Thank you everybody for listening to the Realm Kast today. And special thank you to TJ, the blind gamer, for helping us out with the preparations for this episode. We really appreciate your input.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you, man.
You can find Yanni and myself, FANTiM, on the Mortal Kombat group on Facebook, as well as Yanni on the Mortal Kombat meme realm. And special thanks to our friends at Uppercut Editions who are creating the Mortal Kombat Kompendium for their continued support. You can find them at the Mortal Kombat Encyclopedia Project on Facebook. You can catch up on all episodes of the Realm Kast on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you. Thank you.
Prepare yourself. Who would fear a blind mortal?
One who has never faced him.